The crack of a rifle echoes through the wilderness. A hunter steadies his aim, finger hovering over the trigger, confident in his superiority over the beast in his crosshairs. For centuries, humans have positioned themselves at the apex of the food chain, armed with technology and cunning that seemingly guarantee victory over any creature that walks, swims, or flies. But nature has a way of reminding us that no victory is certain, and that the line between predator and prey can shift in a heartbeat. What happens when the tables turn? When the hunted becomes the hunter, and the prey transforms into an instrument of lethal justice. These aren't fairy tales or cautionary fables passed down through generations. These are real events, documented deaths that occurred when experienced hunters found themselves on the wrong side of nature's brutal equation. In the annals of hunting history, thousands of incidents have been recorded where animals fought back against their pursuers. Most result in minor injuries, a few scars, and stories told around campfires. But some encounters end differently. Some end with the hunter becoming the victim of a cruel reversal of fortune, killed by the very creature they sought to dominate. These deaths stand out not just for their tragic outcomes, but for the unusual circumstances that surrounded them, moments where split-second decisions, unexpected animal behavior, or sheer bad luck created scenarios that seem almost impossible to believe. The stories you're about to hear involve elephants crushing their attackers, wild boars turning into unstoppable forces of rage, lions demonstrating why they've been called the kings of beasts for millennia, buffalo proving their reputation as one of Africa's most dangerous animals, and bears reminding us that they possess strength that defies comprehension. Each case reveals something profound about the creatures involved: their intelligence, their resilience, their capacity for what can only be described as strategic thinking. These aren't stories meant to vilify hunters or glorify violence. Rather, they serve as powerful reminders of the respect nature demands and the consequences that follow when that respect is forgotten. They reveal the thin margin between confidence and overconfidence, between calculated risk and fatal miscalculation. Most importantly, they demonstrate that in the natural world there are no guaranteed outcomes, and that every hunt carries with it the possibility that roles might reverse in ways no one could predict. Welcome to Deadly Tales, where we explore the darkest, most shocking moments when prey became predator, and hunters learned, too late, that nature always holds the final card. Theunis Botha was not just any hunter. The 51-year-old South African professional hunter had built a career spanning 3 decades, leading wealthy clients through the African bush in pursuit of big game. His expertise was renowned, his clients were international, and his confidence was absolute. With hundreds of successful hunts under his belt, Botha had faced down leopards, lions, rhinos, and elephants more times than most people could count. On May 19, 2017, he was guiding a group of hunters in Zimbabwe's Gwe region when he encountered a breeding herd of elephants. The setup seemed routine. Botha and his clients had spotted the herd and were positioning themselves for a trophy elephant. But elephant herds, particularly those with calves, are notoriously protective and unpredictable. What Botha didn't fully account for that day was the explosive defensiveness of a matriarch protecting her young. As the hunting party approached, 3 elephant cows charged from the herd. These weren't bluff charges, mock attacks meant to scare away threats. These were full-commitment rushes, multi-ton animals moving with shocking speed and clear intent. In such situations, hunters are trained to stand their ground and fire warning shots or, if necessary, shoot to stop the charge. Botha did exactly that. He raised his rifle and fired at the charging elephants, hitting one of the attacking cows. But here's where the situation took its fatal turn. A 4th cow elephant, one that Botha hadn't seen or accounted for, charged from his flank. This elephant wasn't deterred by gunfire or the presence of multiple humans. She was driven by a mother's fury, an ancient instinct programmed over millions of years of evolution. Before Botha could react, before he could turn his rifle toward this new threat, the elephant was upon him. The elephant's trunk wrapped around Botha's body with incredible speed and strength. Elephant trunks contain over 40,000 muscles, more than the entire human body, and can lift up to 770 pounds with ease. For an adult human weighing perhaps 180 pounds, this meant being lifted off the ground as effortlessly as a child picks up a toy. Witnesses reported that the elephant lifted Bota high into the air, her trunk coiling around his torso like a python around its prey. What happened next was both horrifying and almost instantaneous. Another hunter in the party, seeing Bota in mortal danger, fired at the elephant holding him. The shot was fatal, the elephant's legs buckled, and the massive creature began to collapse. But in her death throes, the elephant didn't release her grip on Bota. Instead, as her 6,600-pound body fell, she carried Bota down with her. The impact was catastrophic. The elephant landed directly on top of Bota, her immense weight crushing him instantly. The force of several tons of falling elephants striking a human body is incomprehensible. Bones shattered, organs ruptured, and Bota's life ended in seconds. By the time other hunters could reach him, he was already dead, his body trapped beneath the massive corpse of the elephant. The incident sparked international debate. Animal rights activists pointed to the case as evidence of hunting's inherent cruelty and danger, while hunting advocates argued that dangerous game hunting always carries risks that professionals accept. But beyond the politics and ethics, the case revealed something crucial about elephant behavior and intelligence. Elephants are among the most intelligent creatures on Earth, with brains that weigh around 11 pounds, 3 times heavier than human brains. They demonstrate complex emotions, remember grudges for decades, and exhibit what can only be described as strategic thinking. The coordinated charge from multiple cows, the unexpected flank attack from a fourth individual, and even the death grip maintained by the mortally wounded elephant, all of these suggest a level of tactical awareness that goes far beyond simple instinct. Research has shown that elephants can distinguish between different human languages and even between male and female voices, associating men's voices with danger more than women's voices. They've been observed mourning their dead, protecting injured herd members, and working together to achieve complex goals. In Bota's case, the herd displayed classic defensive behavior amplified by intelligence. They didn't just react, they coordinated, they flanked, they adapted. The tragedy also highlighted a bitter irony. Bota specialized in hunting with hounds, often pursuing leopards using packs of trained dogs. He was comfortable with coordinated hunting tactics because he employed them himself. Yet when faced with prey that could coordinate defensively just as effectively as his dogs could coordinate offensively, the tables turned with lethal consequences. What makes this death particularly unusual isn't just that an elephant killed a hunter. Elephant attacks on hunters are relatively uncommon but not unheard of. What's unusual is the manner of death. Crushed beneath the falling body of an elephant, he had indirectly caused another hunter to shoot. It's a death that combines multiple failures: failure to spot the flanking elephant, failure to maintain awareness in a 360-degree threat environment, and failure to account for what a mortally wounded elephant might do in her final moments. The Gui region where Bota died is known for its elephant populations, and locals reported that the herd in question had been particularly aggressive in the days leading up to the incident. Some speculated that previous encounters with poachers or hunters had made the herd more defensive and willing to attack rather than flee. If true, this suggests that elephant herds can learn from past encounters and adjust their behavior accordingly, a frightening prospect for hunters who assume animal behavior is predictable. Bota's death serves as a stark reminder that experience doesn't guarantee survival when dealing with megafauna. 3 decades of hunting experience, countless successful hunts, and professional-grade equipment all meant nothing when faced with an intelligent, furious elephant acting in defense of her herd. In that moment, all the advantages of human technology and skill evaporated, and raw animal power reasserted its dominance. Wild boars occupy a unique space in the hunting world. They're not the largest game, nor the most dangerous in terms of raw predatory ability. Yet experienced hunters across Europe, Asia, and North America consistently rank wild boar among the most dangerous animals to hunt. Their combination of speed, aggression, and shocking resilience makes them unpredictable adversaries. In November 2019, a hunter in Turkey learned this lesson in the most brutal way possible. The 35-year-old hunter, whose name was withheld by Turkish authorities, was hunting in the forests near Izmir with a small group of friends. Wild boar hunting in Turkey is both traditional and necessary. Boar populations have exploded in recent decades, causing significant agricultural damage and occasionally attacking humans in rural areas. The hunt seemed routine. The group had tracked a large male boar, estimated at around 400 pounds, into dense woodland. Male wild boars, called boars, specifically while females are sows, are formidable creatures. They sport tusks that can grow up to 9 inches long, continuously sharpened through friction as upper and lower tusks grind against each other. These tusks aren't just for display, they're weapons capable of slicing through flesh and muscle with terrifying efficiency. A charging boar can reach speeds of 30 miles per hour over short distances, and their skull structure is so dense that headshots often fail to penetrate, with bullets deflecting off bone. The Turkish hunter positioned himself in what seemed like an ideal location. The boar was approximately 50 yards away, distracted by rooting in the forest floor for acorns and roots. The hunter raised his rifle. Reports indicate it was a .308 caliber hunting rifle, more than adequate for taking down a boar with proper shot placement. He aimed carefully at the boar's vital zone, the area behind the shoulder where heart and lungs reside. The shot rang out, echoing through the forest. The bullet struck true. The boar staggered, let out a bellowing squeal, and initially appeared to be mortally wounded. This is where most boar hunts end. The animal collapses within seconds or runs a short distance before dying from massive internal bleeding. But this particular boar had other plans. Instead of dying, the boar turned toward the sound of the gunshot. Even with catastrophic internal injuries, with blood filling its chest cavity and its heart struggling to pump through damaged tissue, the boar fixed on its attacker with single-minded fury. What happened next defied the expectations of everyone present. The boar charged. Not a tentative, wounded stagger, but a full-speed charge characterized by explosive rage and adrenaline-fueled power. Witnesses later described the sound as terrifying, 400 pounds of muscle and bone thundering through underbrush, closing the 50-yard gap with shocking speed. The hunter, confident his shot had been fatal, froze for a critical second, unable to process that a mortally wounded animal was attacking rather than dying. By the time the hunter raised his rifle for a second shot, the boar was already within 20 yards. He fired again, this time hitting the boar in the shoulder. The impact would have stopped most animals instantly, shattering bone and causing immediate incapacitation. The boar barely slowed. It continued its charge, now less than 10 yards away, its small eyes locked on the human who had wounded it. The hunter attempted to chamber another round, but the bolt-action mechanism of his rifle required precious seconds he didn't have. The boar crashed into him before he could fire a third shot, hitting with the force of a small car. The impact alone was devastating. The hunter was thrown backward, his rifle flying from his hands as he hit the ground hard. But the collision was just the beginning. The boar, driven by pain, rage, and the primal instinct to destroy whatever had hurt it, began its attack in earnest. Its tusks, honed to razor sharpness through years of grinding, slashed at the fallen hunter with mechanical precision. The primary killing method of a wild boar isn't a single devastating wound, it's a series of rapid, repeated slashing attacks, each tusk strike creating deep lacerations that accumulate catastrophic damage. The hunter's companions, positioned at various points around the hunting area, heard the screams and began running toward the sound. One hunter, approximately 100 yards away, reached the scene first. What he witnessed would haunt him for years. The boar, still standing despite having been shot twice in vital areas, was actively attacking the fallen hunter, who was attempting to protect his face and neck with his arms. The responding hunter raised his rifle and fired at the boar from less than 20 yards away. This shot, striking the boar in the spine, finally ended the animal's rampage. The boar collapsed instantly, its rear legs paralyzed by the spinal damage. Even then, as it lay dying, the boar continued to attempt to reach the injured hunter, dragging itself forward with its front legs in a final display of tenacity that shocked even the experienced hunters present. Emergency services were called immediately. The injured hunter had suffered multiple deep lacerations to his arms, legs, and torso. The tusks had created wounds that ranged from 3 to 7 inches deep, slicing through muscle and creating wounds that bled profusely. But the most serious damage was internal. The initial impact when the boar charged had broken 3 ribs and caused significant bruising to internal organs. Medical personnel airlifted the hunter to a hospital in Izmir, where surgeons worked for hours to repair the damage. Despite their efforts, complications developed. One of the tusk wounds had penetrated deeply enough to nick the femoral artery in his leg, and though surgeons managed to repair the artery, blood loss and subsequent infection proved overwhelming. 4 days after the attack, the hunter died from multiple organ failure brought on by infection and the cumulative trauma of his injuries. The autopsy of the boar revealed why it had been so impossibly resilient. The first bullet had indeed struck the vital zone, puncturing one lung and causing massive internal bleeding. The second shot had shattered the shoulder blade and damaged muscle tissue. By all rights, the boar should have been incapacitated within seconds of the first shot. But wild boars possess a physiology uniquely suited to surviving traumatic injury long enough to fight back. Their cardiovascular system includes a particularly efficient heart that can maintain blood pressure even with significant blood loss. Their muscle tissue is incredibly dense, with fat layers that can actually slow bullet penetration and prevent immediate lethality. Most remarkably, their pain tolerance and adrenal response allow them to continue functioning far beyond the point where other animals would collapse in shock. This wasn't an isolated incident. Records show dozens of similar cases where wounded boars have turned on their hunters with lethal results. In 2007, a hunter in Germany was killed by a wounded boar that charged over 80 yards despite having been shot through the chest. In 2016, a French hunter died when a wounded boar he thought was dead suddenly revived and attacked as he approached. In Texas, where feral hog populations have exploded, multiple hunters have been hospitalized with serious injuries from boar counterattacks. What makes the Turkish case particularly notable is the time factor. The boar maintained its attack capability for nearly 30 seconds after receiving 2 shots that should have been rapidly fatal. That half-minute window from first shot to final collapse was enough time for the boar to close distance, make impact, and deliver injuries that would ultimately prove fatal to the hunter. The incident sparked debate in Turkish hunting communities about proper technique for boar hunting. Experts emphasized the importance of follow-up shots, maintaining shooting position rather than approaching a downed animal immediately, and understanding that wounded boars are perhaps the most dangerous version of an already dangerous animal. Some hunters began advocating for larger caliber rifles or shotguns loaded with slugs, arguing that the stopping power of a .308 isn't sufficient for hunting animals known for their resilience. But the deeper lesson transcends hunting tactics. The boar that killed the Turkish hunter demonstrated something fundamental about prey animals. When backed into a corner, when wounded and fighting for survival, they can become as dangerous as any apex predator. The boar didn't kill the hunter through superior predatory ability, it killed him through sheer refusal to die, through a biological imperative to survive that overrode catastrophic physical damage. In that moment, the roles of hunter and hunted became meaningless. There was only a struggle between 2 creatures fighting for survival, and the one with greater resilience won. Ian Gibson was living his dream. The 55-year-old from Georgia had saved for years to afford a lion hunt in South Africa's Limpopo province. In August 2018, he arrived at a private game reserve, accompanied by professional hunters and trackers who would guide him through what was supposed to be a carefully controlled hunt. Lion hunting, while controversial, is legal in South Africa under specific circumstances, typically conducted on private reserves where lions are bred for hunting purposes. The lion in question was a large male, approximately 400 pounds, with a full dark mane that indicated mature age and peak physical condition. Professional hunters on the reserve estimated the lion at around 8 years old, past his prime as a wild lion, but still possessing formidable strength and all the lethal capabilities that have made lions synonymous with danger for millennia. The hunt followed a standard protocol. The lion was baited to a specific area using meat, and Gibson, along with his professional hunter guide, approached the bait site in the early morning when lions are most active. The setup seemed safe. Gibson would shoot from approximately 80 yards with a .375 H&H Magnum rifle, a caliber specifically designed for dangerous African game. His professional hunter carried a backup rifle, ready to provide additional shots if needed. As dawn broke, the lion appeared, drawn by the bait. Gibson took his position, steadied his rifle against a shooting stick, and aimed for the heart-lung area. Everything was proceeding according to plan. The professional hunter watched through binoculars, ready to call the shot. Gibson's breathing steadied, his finger tightened on the trigger, and the rifle cracked with authority. The bullet struck the lion in the chest area, seemingly a good shot. The lion roared, a sound that one witness described as not like any sound in nature, and stumbled backward. For a moment, it appeared the hunt was over. The lion's legs seemed to give way, and it dropped to the ground. This is where Gibson made a critical error, one that professional hunters warn about repeatedly but that successful shots can make hunters forget. He assumed the lion was dead or dying. Gibson lowered his rifle and turned to his professional hunter with a smile, saying something about it being a perfect shot. The professional hunter, more experienced and cautious, kept his rifle ready and his eyes on the lion, but he too began to relax as seconds passed without movement from the animal. They waited approximately 2 minutes, watching the lion's motionless form. In that time, no breathing was visible, no twitching, nothing to suggest life remained. The group began moving forward to examine the kill, standard practice to confirm death and begin the process of field dressing the animal. Gibson walked ahead, rifle still in hand but lowered, his excitement overriding his caution. They closed to within 30 feet of the lion when the professional hunter noticed something that made his blood run cold. The lion's ear had twitched. He shouted a warning, but it came a fraction too late. The lion, which had been neither dead nor unconscious but rather in a state of shock and temporary paralysis, exploded into motion with terrifying speed. Lions can accelerate from 0 to 50 miles per hour in just a few strides, and this one covered the 30 feet to Gibson in less than 2 seconds. The attack was savage and efficient. Lions have evolved to kill large prey quickly, zebras, buffalo, even young elephants. Their killing technique typically involves either suffocation, using their powerful jaws to clamp down on the throat or muzzle, or a bite to the back of the neck that severs the spinal cord. But in cases of attack rather than hunting, lions become even more lethal, using their claws as well as their teeth to inflict maximum damage. The lion struck Gibson with its full weight, knocking him flat. Before he could even scream, the lion's jaws clamped around his neck. A lion's bite force can exceed 650 psi, strong enough to crush bone and tear through flesh and muscle with horrifying ease. The professional hunter raised his backup rifle and fired, hitting the lion in the shoulder, but the damage was already done. The lion, struck by the shot, released Gibson and turned toward the new threat. It took 2 more shots before the lion finally collapsed, this time genuinely dead. But those seconds of delay were all it took. Gibson lay on the ground, blood pouring from catastrophic wounds to his neck and shoulder. The lion's teeth had severed his carotid artery and jugular vein, and despite immediate first aid attempts by the professional hunter and trackers, Gibson was already losing consciousness from blood loss. A medical helicopter was called, but the nearest hospital was 45 minutes away. Gibson never regained consciousness. He was pronounced dead at the scene, becoming one of the rare cases where a client hunter was killed during a lion hunt despite being accompanied by professional guides and using appropriate caliber weapons. The investigation that followed revealed several crucial details. First, Gibson's shot, while appearing to hit the chest area, had actually struck slightly lower than intended, hitting the sternum rather than passing between ribs into the vital organs. The bullet had caused significant damage and shock, but it hadn't immediately incapacitated the lion. The sternum, being solid bone, had partially deflected the bullet, preventing it from reaching the heart. Second, the lion's playing dead behavior wasn't conscious deception, it was a physiological response to trauma. When animals receive severe injuries, their bodies sometimes enter a state called neurogenic shock, where the nervous system responds to trauma by essentially shutting down non-essential functions. Blood pressure drops, muscles go limp, and the animal appears dead. But this state can be temporary, lasting anywhere from seconds to several minutes, and when the animal recovers from the shock, it can respond with violent aggression. Third, and perhaps most importantly, the investigation revealed that the lion had been darted with tranquilizers the night before to move it to the hunting area. While the tranquilizers had supposedly worn off by morning, some experts suggested that residual chemicals in the lion's system might have contributed to its unusual behavior, first appearing more lethargic than normal, then responding with extreme violence when wounded. The case ignited fierce debates about lion hunting ethics. Animal welfare organizations pointed to the incident as evidence that such hunts create artificial scenarios that can backfire with deadly consequences. Hunting advocates argued that Gibson's death was the result of individual errors rather than systematic problems, noting that thousands of similar hunts conclude without incident. But beyond the ethics and politics, the case demonstrated something crucial about lions specifically and big cats generally. They possess an almost supernatural ability to function despite catastrophic injuries. There are documented cases of lions continuing to fight while mortally wounded, of leopards climbing trees with broken spines, of tigers attacking humans after being shot multiple times. Their muscle structure, cardiovascular efficiency, and pain tolerance allow them to remain dangerous far longer than seems possible. Lions evolved as apex predators in an environment where being injured meant potential starvation or death. They developed physiological traits that allow them to push through pain and injury to complete attacks or defend themselves. When wounded, a lion doesn't simply lie down and die. It becomes, if anything, more dangerous, driven by pain and survival instinct into aggressive action. Gibson's death serves as a tragic reminder that hunting dangerous game is exactly what the name implies: dangerous. All the technology, all the professional guidance, all the controlled conditions can't completely eliminate risk when dealing with animals that weigh several hundred pounds, can run faster than any human, and are equipped with natural weapons refined through millions of years of evolution. The line between a successful hunt and a deadly disaster can be measured in inches. The difference between a shot that hits the heart and one that hits bone, between maintaining vigilance and relaxing too soon. In hunting circles, the African Cape buffalo holds a reputation that borders on mythical. They're called Black Death, Widowmaker, and the most dangerous game in Africa, titles that might seem exaggerated until you understand the statistics. Cape buffalo are responsible for killing more hunters in Africa than any other animal, including lions, elephants, and crocodiles. In 2017, a Zimbabwean professional hunter named Scott Van Zyl became another tragic entry in the buffalo's deadly ledger, but the circumstances of his death were so unusual that they captured international attention. Van Zyl, 44 years old, was himself a professional hunter and safari operator, not a client on a guided hunt. His company had operated successfully for years, taking clients on hunts across Zimbabwe and South Africa. He was experienced, cautious, and intimately familiar with buffalo behavior. On April 11, 2017, he ventured into the crocodile-infested Limpopo River area near the Zimbabwe-South Africa border on what was supposed to be a scouting mission for future hunts. Buffalo live in herds that can number from a few dozen to several hundred individuals. Unlike elephants, which are generally peaceful unless threatened, buffalo seem to harbor an active dislike for humans. They've been observed deliberately hunting hunters who wounded them, circling back to ambush their pursuers with calculated precision. Bulls that have been ejected from herds or grown too old for breeding, called Daga boys, from the mud they wallow in, are particularly dangerous, unpredictable, aggressive, and possessing nothing to lose. Van Zyl was tracking alone, which violated the most basic rule of hunting dangerous game. He had 2 dogs with him for companionship and tracking assistance, but no human backup, no professional hunter partner, no one to provide covering fire or assistance if things went wrong. His GPS tracker and phone showed him moving through dense bush near the river when both devices suddenly went silent. When Van Zyl didn't return or make scheduled radio contact, search teams were dispatched. They found his backpack, his rifle, and most disturbingly, signs of a violent struggle. The ground showed drag marks, blood, and the unmistakable hoofprints of Cape buffalo, multiple animals, given the depth and number of tracks. But Van Zyl himself was nowhere to be found. The search expanded over days, utilizing helicopters, tracking dogs, and local trackers renowned for their ability to read signs in the bush. They discovered one of Van Zyl's dogs, dead from apparent trampling. The other dog was found alive but traumatized, cowering in thick brush. But of Van Zyl, there was no trace, until searchers made a grim discovery in the Limpopo River. A large Nile crocodile, one of several that inhabit the river system, had been spotted repeatedly in the area where Van Zil's tracks ended. Professional hunters shot and killed 2 crocodiles as part of the search operation. When they examined the stomach contents of these crocodiles, they found human remains. DNA testing confirmed that the remains were Scott Van Zyl. The reconstruction of what happened, pieced together from evidence at the scene and expert analysis of buffalo behavior, painted a horrifying picture. Van Zyl had apparently encountered either a lone bull or a small bachelor group of buffalo. Perhaps he got too close, perhaps his dogs barked and startled them, perhaps the buffalo were already in an aggressive state, triggered a charge. Buffalo don't charge like elephants or rhinos, with a straightforward rush meant to bowl over their target. Buffalo charges often involve hooking movements of their massive horned heads, designed to gore and toss, followed by trampling with their sharp, cloven hooves. An adult Cape buffalo can weigh up to 2,000 pounds and generate incredible momentum when charging. Their horn bosses, the thick, fused bone where the horns meet on the skull, can act like battering rams, capable of crushing bone and rupturing organs through blunt force trauma. The evidence suggested that Van Zyl attempted to shoot one or more of the buffalo but either missed, failed to make a stopping shot, or simply ran out of time before the charge reached him. His rifle was found on the ground, a round chambered but not fired, suggesting he may have been hit before he could shoot or that he was knocked down so hard the rifle was lost immediately. Buffalo are notorious for continuing their attacks long after a threat is neutralized. There are documented cases of buffalo trampling hunters for minutes after they've been killed, as if the animal is ensuring the threat is completely eliminated. Other buffalo in the group would have joined in, each taking turns to gore and trample, driven by herd instinct and perceived threat. At some point during or after this attack, Van Zyl's body ended up in the river. Whether the buffalo dragged him there, whether he crawled there in a desperate attempt to escape, or whether he was already dead and scavengers dragged the body toward water is unknown. What is certain is that once in the river, he became prey for crocodiles, which are opportunistic feeders always alert for easy meals. The tragedy of Van Zyl's death extends beyond the horrific manner of his dying. He was killed by the very animals he had built his life around hunting. He understood their danger intellectually, had seen their capabilities firsthand, and yet a moment of inattention or bad luck proved fatal. The buffalo that killed him weren't supersized specimens or abnormally aggressive individuals. They were ordinary buffalo doing what buffalo do when they perceive a threat. What makes this case particularly unusual is the combination of factors. A professional hunter killed by buffalo, his body then consumed by crocodiles, all while he was alone in some of Africa's most dangerous terrain. Each element, buffalo, crocodile, solitary hunting, is dangerous enough on its own. Together, they created a perfect storm of lethal circumstances. Experts who reviewed the case pointed to several possible scenarios. Some suggested that Van Zyl may have deliberately approached the buffalo too closely, perhaps attempting to get photographs or assess them as potential targets for clients. Others theorized that he stumbled into the buffalo unexpectedly while navigating thick bush, giving both parties no time to react appropriately. A few suggested that his dogs might have chased or harassed the buffalo, triggering the protective aggression for which buffalo are famous. Buffalo possess several traits that make them uniquely dangerous. Their eyesight is poor, which means they often don't identify threats until very close, triggering panic charges. Their herding instinct means that one buffalo's alarm can cause an entire group to charge simultaneously. Their memory is exceptional. Buffalo have been known to recognize and charge specific humans who had previously wounded them, even years later. Most significantly, buffalo seem to understand that attacking is sometimes the best defense. Unlike many prey animals that flee first and fight only as a last resort, buffalo frequently choose combat over flight, especially bulls and cows with calves. This aggressive tendency, combined with physical capabilities that include sharp horns, tremendous weight, and surprising speed, creates an animal that many experienced African hunters consider more dangerous than lions. Van Zyl's death sparked conversation in professional hunting communities about solo hunting dangers. Zimbabwe's Professional Hunters Association issued reminders about minimum safety standards, including always hunting dangerous game with a backup hunter. But the reality is that such tragedies, while rare, are an inherent risk of the profession. Buffalo live up to their deadly reputation year after year, and even the most experienced hunters can find themselves on the wrong side of a charge that leaves no room for error or second chances. Charles Mock understood grizzly bears as well as any person could. The 40-year-old Alaskan doctor was an experienced hunter who had spent years pursuing game across Alaska's vast wilderness. He understood that grizzly bears, North America's largest land predators, required extreme caution and respect. On September 4, 2001, Mock was hunting in the 40-mile area of east-central Alaska with a friend when he encountered a bear that would demonstrate exactly why grizzlies occupy the top of the danger hierarchy. Grizzly bears, particularly Alaskan browns, can weigh up to 1,500 pounds and stand over 10 feet tall when on their hind legs. They possess strength that seems almost supernatural, capable of decapitating a moose with a single paw swipe, flipping over 800-pound boulders to find food, and running at speeds up to 35 miles per hour despite their enormous bulk. Their claws can measure 4 inches long, and their bite force exceeds 1,200 psi, strong enough to crush a bowling ball. Mock and his friend were hunting moose when they encountered a large male grizzly in thick brush. The bear appeared to be feeding on a previous kill, likely a moose carcass, which is one of the most dangerous scenarios in bear country. A bear defending a food cache is unpredictable, aggressive, and will fight to the death to protect its meal. Bears can become possessive of kills even if they didn't make the kill themselves, often stealing carcasses from wolves or claiming hunters' kills as their own. The protocols for such situations are clear: back away slowly, avoid eye contact, speak in calm tones, and never run. Mock and his friend attempted to do exactly that, beginning to retreat from the area. But the bear had other plans. Perhaps it interpreted their presence as an attempt to steal its food, or perhaps it was simply in an aggressive state from defending the kill against other predators. Whatever the reason, the bear charged. Grizzly charges fall into 2 categories: bluff charges, where the bear stops short or veers away, meant to frighten rather than harm, and committed attacks, where the bear intends to neutralize what it perceives as a threat. This was clearly the latter. The bear covered the approximately 50 yards between itself and the hunters in less than 4 seconds, moving with explosive speed through dense brush. Mock raised his rifle. Reports indicate it was a .300 Winchester Magnum, a powerful caliber more than adequate for bringing down a grizzly with proper shot placement. He fired as the bear closed to within 20 yards, hitting the bear in the chest. The shot would have been fatal to almost any animal, destroying lung tissue and causing massive bleeding. But grizzlies possess an extraordinary will to fight through injuries. The bear barely slowed. Mock fired again, this time hitting the bear in the shoulder. Still the bear came on, now within 10 yards and accelerating. A third shot hit the bear somewhere in the body. Witnesses couldn't say precisely where due to the chaos of the moment, and still the bear refused to go down. By the time Mock could chamber a 4th round, the bear was on him. The attack was overwhelming in its violence. Grizzlies don't kill like big cats, with calculated bites to vital areas. They maul, using claws and teeth together in a devastating combination that tears and crushes simultaneously. The bear's first swipe caught Mock across the chest and shoulder, claws ripping through clothing, flesh, and muscle as if they weren't there. The force of the blow knocked Mock's rifle away and sent him stumbling backward. Before Mock could recover, the bear was on top of him, its weight crushing him to the ground. Grizzly bears often bite at the head and neck during attacks, and this bear was no exception. Its jaws clamped down on Mock's head, teeth penetrating skull bone with horrifying ease. The bear shook its head back and forth, the way a dog shakes a toy, causing catastrophic trauma to Mock's skull and brain. Mock's friend, who had been positioned off to the side, opened fire on the bear with his own rifle. The first shot missed in his panic. The second shot hit the bear in the back but failed to stop the attack. Only when the third shot struck the bear in the spine did it finally release Mock and collapse, its rear legs paralyzed but still trying to drag itself toward the perceived threat. By the time the friend reached Mock, it was clear the injuries were beyond help. Mock's skull had been fractured in multiple places, his scalp torn, his neck and shoulders bearing deep puncture wounds from the bear's teeth. Even if medical evacuation had been minutes away instead of hours, the damage was too severe. Charles Mock died at the scene, killed by an animal he had shot 3 times in vital areas. The subsequent examination of the bear revealed the extraordinary damage Mock's bullets had inflicted. All 3 shots had hit vital areas. One had destroyed significant lung tissue, another had shattered the shoulder blade, and the third had damaged the liver. Any one of these wounds would have been fatal given time. The bear had massive internal bleeding and would have died within minutes even without the final spine shot. But those minutes were enough for the bear to carry out its attack and kill its attacker. This case exemplifies a terrifying reality about grizzly bears. They can continue fighting with injuries that would immediately incapacitate other animals. Their cardiovascular system, muscle structure, and seeming immunity to shock allow them to push through catastrophic damage. Adrenaline and rage combine to create a force that bullets can't immediately stop. Mock's death wasn't the result of inadequate firepower or poor marksmanship. He used an appropriate caliber, made solid hits on vital areas, and did everything hunters are taught to do when facing a charging bear. But sometimes, everything right isn't enough. The bear's combination of size, speed, rage, and nearly impossible resilience created a scenario where even perfect execution of defensive measures proved inadequate. What makes this case particularly unusual is that Mock died despite making multiple successful hits on the bear before it reached him. Most fatal bear attacks involve surprise encounters where the victim has no time to react, or situations where the victim is unarmed. Mock had warning, had time to shoot, made good hits, and still died. It demonstrates that grizzly bears, when committed to an attack, can sometimes be unstoppable by conventional means. Alaska wildlife officials who investigated the case noted that the bear showed no signs of rabies or abnormal aggression. It was simply a large, mature male defending what it considered its territory and food source. The fact that it had been mortally wounded didn't matter to the bear's attack instinct. It fought until physical incapacitation made further fighting impossible. Mock's death sent shockwaves through the Alaskan hunting community. He was known as a careful, experienced hunter who understood bear behavior. If someone with his knowledge and experience could be killed despite being armed and making solid defensive shots, it highlighted the reality that no one is truly safe when entering grizzly country. The wilderness doesn't care about experience or preparation, it only cares about the outcome of each encounter, and sometimes that outcome is determined by factors beyond human control. The case also sparked debate about appropriate calibers for bear defense. Some experts argued that larger calibers, perhaps .375 H&H or even .458 Winchester Magnum, should be minimum standards for hunting in grizzly country. Others countered that shot placement matters more than caliber, and that even the largest rifles can't guarantee stopping a committed charge if the bear isn't immediately hit in the brain or spine. These 5 cases represent more than just tragic hunting accidents. They reveal fundamental truths about the relationship between humans and the animals we hunt. Each death occurred despite significant advantages on the hunter's side: modern rifles, experience, backup support in some cases, and knowledge of animal behavior. Yet in each instance, the prey transformed into predator, and superior firepower proved insufficient against the raw determination to survive. The elephants demonstrated tactical intelligence and coordinated defensive behavior that rivals military formations. The wild boar proved that sheer tenacity and refusal to die can overcome catastrophic injuries. The lion showed that apex predators remain apex predators even when wounded, perhaps especially when wounded. The Cape buffalo reminded us why they hold the title of most dangerous game, turning what should have been a scouting mission into a deadly encounter. The grizzly bear illustrated that some animals can fight through injuries that would kill any other creature, driven by rage and instinct to neutralize threats regardless of the cost. What connects all these stories is the moment when confidence transforms into complacency, when respect for danger is temporarily forgotten or underestimated. Thunis Botha had decades of experience but failed to maintain 360-degree awareness. The Turkish hunter assumed a mortally wounded boar would die rather than attack. Ian Gibson lowered his guard when the lion appeared dead. Scott Van Zyl hunted alone in one of Africa's most dangerous environments. Charles Mach did everything right but faced an animal whose biology defied all reasonable expectations of what fatally wounded means. These deaths aren't arguments against hunting, they're reminders that hunting dangerous game is exactly that, dangerous. The wilderness owes us nothing. Animals fighting for survival don't follow rules or honor human expectations. A wounded animal is an exponentially more dangerous animal, driven by pain and desperation into acts that seem impossible until they happen. For hunters, these cases offer lessons that extend far beyond specific tactical errors. They emphasize the importance of backup support, the critical need to maintain vigilance even after a seemingly successful shot, the value of adequate calibers and shot placement, and the fundamental requirement to respect that prey animals can become predators in the blink of an eye. But for everyone else, these stories serve a different purpose. They remind us that humans aren't as dominant in the natural world as we like to believe. We've developed technology that provides advantages, but those advantages aren't insurmountable. The animals killed in these encounters, the elephants, the boar, the lion, the buffalo, the bear, all died too. But they didn't die quietly or passively. They fought back with everything nature gave them, and in fighting back, they demonstrated that prey isn't synonymous with victim. Nature doesn't recognize human superiority. It recognizes strength, speed, intelligence, and the will to survive. Sometimes that will to survive, whether an elephant or boar, lion or buffalo, bear or any other creature, proves stronger than bullets and technology. In those moments, the roles we assign, hunter and hunted, predator and prey, dissolve into something more primal. Two creatures fighting for survival, and only one will walk away. These hunters died pursuing their passion, understanding the risks intellectually even if they couldn't fully prepare for the reality. Their deaths weren't meaningless. They serve as powerful reminders that nature always holds cards we can't predict, that respecting the wilderness means acknowledging we're not always in control, and that sometimes the hunter becomes the hunted in ways no one could foresee. In the end, their stories stand as testament to the enduring power of wild animals to surprise, to resist, and occasionally, to exact a terrible price for human intrusion into their world.